Hey VIPs, I'm back. I'm ready to share with you all about scheduling in the classroom, giving you tips and tricks, and just basically sharing with you how I've used it. You'll also see the link above for the blog post that I wrote 2 summers ago, I think, about this process and how I work through it. So come on in. First, tell me what struggles do you have with scheduling in your classroom? I'm asking that first because I'm trying to open up my old schedule from my previous school. Hopefully I still have it. If not, I'll share with you the blog post images. But I want to know what issues or what struggles do you have when it comes to your schedule, and what help do you need necessarily to kind of get past those? Do you have a mentor at school? Is there someone you can reach out to? That would be my first thing to suggest, is if there's somebody in school, like admin was always my first go-to when I had an issue with scheduling. They were in control of the gen ed schedule, which I needed first before I could schedule anything in my classroom. So the first step for setting up my classroom schedule was I determined what my specific classroom schedule was going to be. In my last classroom for self-contained, it was the same every year. I got very lucky with how the general ed schedule was set up, and they were very cognizant that my kids needed to go into inclusion. They were pro-inclusion for that. So they were very cognizant that my kids were going to be pushed out. I know that's not how it works in all of the schools, and I was just very fortunate in the last school that I was in that that's how it worked. That's not how it's always worked in every school that I've worked in. So the first step was always determining what my specific classroom schedule was going to be. And that was something that I could do on my own. That was something that I didn't need admin for. It's something that I didn't need anybody else's help with. That was my specific schedule. So typically my schedule in the self-contained classroom, there it is, looked like coming in, morning calendar for the first hour. That was attendance, using the restroom, doing our calendar, doing our morning binders, and then getting students ready to go to specials. So specials was the time when my para or paras took the kids to specials. All of my kids, I had 4 different grade levels at some points. Some points I only had 2. Depending on how many kids I had in the class. Some of them could handle going to specials independently. Some needed a para to go with. So that was the time, specials was the time when I had my planning. And it was 45 minutes in the morning. I really liked having it in the morning because if I needed to have an IEP meeting, I could get it out of the way in the morning. Or if I needed to print some things for the rest of the school day, which was very often, I could do it that time. Or I could pre-plan and plan for the rest of the week. I'm really good at that. We've talked about my whole lesson planning, whatever. Anyway, so then we would have planning. The kids would come back and we would do guided reading. So we would do guided reading that would go into, it looked different every single day, depended on the kids and who was there with resource and inclusion and all of that fun stuff. So we had a guided reading, and that lasted for hour and however many minutes it was. I don't even remember. Then we would go to lunch. We had early lunch. We were the first lunch, and we overlapped with the other classes coming in for lunch then after that. So then we would go out to recess. We went from lunch to recess. When we came in, it was time for my paras to have lunch duty and time for my paras to also have their own lunch. So I had last lunch when it came to my classroom. My kids ate first, and then my paras did their duty or their lunch, and they usually switched. So they were both gone at the same time. Or I would have one for 15 minutes and then they would leave and I would be by myself with the kids in the classroom. That is typically the time when we would do iPad and computer time. Some of my kids would be working on a computer. Some of them would be working on a tablet. If they hadn't finished work from the morning, they would be finishing it with me at the back table. Other than that, they were on their iPads doing something academic for the first part of it. And then the last 15 minutes, they could do whatever they wanted, whether that was watch Daniel Tiger, PBS Kids, or get on kids' YouTube. They could do whatever they wanted for the last 15 minutes as long as they worked on an academic task on the iPad or the computer for the first section of it, first part of it. After iPad, my paras are still at lunch or they're still doing lunch duty. So that was when we had motor lab, and that was our sensory time. I actually got it at a yard sale. It was just like a bin setup, and there were it wasn't very tall, like the height of a regular table. I had 8 bins, and there were different things in there. So I just collected things that were in the classroom from the previous teacher. There were things I picked up like at the Dollar Tree, like there were Hot Wheels, a parent donated some trains, and like the old train set that her kid wasn't using, her youngest child wasn't using anymore. I had some stuffed animals in there. There were babies, because one of my older girls loved being like a mom. So I got her a baby doll so she could pretend to feed it, dramatic play. We had a kitchen set up. They had kitchen food, all of that fun stuff. Man, I really hope that I still have my schedule. And then other things in there, we had sensory bins. So there was a water bead table. We had sensory bins with straws, and they could pull things out and find them. Just a really random mix of things, kinetic sand, and that my kids loved to do. And it was something that they felt like play, but it wasn't really play. It was still very academic. This gave me time to be with my kids and watch all of the kids. Haha, there it is. Watch all of my kids when my pairs and they were at lunch duty or lunch. So when they would come back, it would be time for snack time, and they would have snack while I took my 30-minute lunch. So snack/bathroom, so afternoon bathroom break. And this was something my parents could do independently. They didn't need me to be there. There wasn't necessarily any instruction time. It was just snack, and it was using the restroom. It worked out perfectly for our schedule. When I came back, snack and bathroom was done. It was time to get back to work. We had math. We had math for about an hour and however long it was. We came back after that, and then we math. And then my kids, if they had inclusion time, it worked perfectly. And I mean, this just doesn't happen ever, that all of my kids went to inclusion in the afternoon. And some of them could go independently and some of them couldn't. Usually if there were 2 of us, I would take the higher kids to go to their classes, and I would flip-flop back in between. And then my other pair would take the other students my nonverbal students to their classroom. And they all ended up being almost in the same grade level anyway. So it worked out really, really well. And then after they would come back from inclusion, it would be time to use the restroom again, pack up, and go home. So that was typically what the classroom schedule looked like for my individual classroom. Now, student schedules were very, very different, and that's what we're going to be talking about in here. So let me delete all of the student names for confidentiality purposes. This was my schedule for a couple of years ago, so I can share it with you confidently. And you can see my schedule on here. Let me delete teacher names. So the first thing you're going to want to do, and I'm going to explain this as I'm doing this, so I apologize that I'm not looking at you. But you're going to want to come up with your classroom schedule for your independent classroom, like your classroom. The next thing you're going to want to do is you are going to talk to all of the general ed teachers where your kids are going to inclusion. You're going to talk to the resource teacher, and you're going to talk to all of the specials teachers. Typically, admin gave us the special schedule because you needed to know when your kids were going to specials, who was going to be in your classroom at what time, where your paras needed to go, when, all of that fun stuff. You need to know all of that information. So you need to get all of that information, and typically, in my experience, that wasn't something I could get until like the first couple of days of school, which was terrible because, or it would be like the day or 2 right before school, they didn't have the schedule ready to go. So that is something you will get closer to when school is actually beginning to start. But your independent classroom schedule is something that you can get up, that you can prep, and have just your general classroom visual schedule on the front board. You can also prep some of those pieces for your kids as well. Okay, I just put all the teachers' names in here. Let me delete all of this. So once you have all of that information, what you're also going to need is you're going to need your kids' service times, right? You need to know what kids are going where and when. So maybe they don't have inclusion, but maybe you have some kids who have inclusion, they have resource, and they have 30 minutes of reading inclusion, and then they have 30 minutes of resource reading, but then they have to be with you summit. Like, there's minutes for everything. And that's kind of where it gets overwhelming when you're trying to figure out independent student schedules, because all the kids have something different, or they have the same times at different times. And how do you keep your basics classroom schedule when you have one kid and then you have another kid coming in? And it gets very overwhelming, and it's completely normal. So don't feel like you're all alone in this. Please know that you're not. We're all going crazy with you. Some of us just handle it differently than others. I promise. I had somebody reach out to me. I think it was either last night or this morning, and they were like, "Thank you for such and such. You made me feel less of a hot mess." And I was like, "Oh, love, I'm a hot mess all the time, so I'm happy to be like that person to make you not feel like hot mess, because just always come to me, because I will help you out with it." So just don't feel overwhelmed when you're creating your schedule. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because that's what we're all here for. So I've deleted all of the student names out of here. I'm ready to show you the schedule. Are you ready? Okay, I'm gonna flip you around, and we're gonna try this whole, like, you're gonna be looking at my computer thing, and I hope it works out. That's all I'm gonna say. I have my soda sitting here, so I hope it works out. There we go. All right, so we are in my office. Doesn't it look so good so far? Okay, anyway, I need to figure out how to get you set up so you can just sit here and look at my computer screen without it being crooked. Why are we crooked? Hold on. Haha. Okay. But y'all are going to be backwards now, so let me flip and make sure you're not backwards. Ta-da! I feel like the magic gatekeeper. Okay. So let me make this a little bit bigger. I don't know if I can make this bigger. I might just have to hold you. Yep, we're just going to hold you. Okay, so this was my student schedule, my classroom/individual schedule for one of the school years when I taught self-contained. And one of the special ed directors actually helped me create this. So the tips I'm giving you are something that she also helped to teach me. So you'll see our regular classroom schedule here. And I'm using Excel. I suck at using Excel. I promise you I can do this, and that's about it. I know nothing else. So this is super easy. If I can do it, you can also do it. So I put my Delussy, that's me. This is the classroom schedule here. Okay, so it's on the end, so I know what and where and all of that fun stuff. I did 15-minute increments only because I had 5 different kids. One time I had 7, and I needed to be able to place them somewhere in 15-minute increments. So if you have less kids or more kids, or you need it every 5 minutes, however it works for you, put in your timing here. So each time is just going to be in a different row. I put my class schedule here, and all you're going to do to make it fit like a certain time is you're just going to, I'm going to try and do this with one hand. You'll highlight all of the boxes that you want to be one. Guys, I'm really, really terrible at Excel. I haven't even used the new Excel yet. And you're gonna merge wherever that button is. And then it's gonna make it look like this, and you can type in it, okay? So we're just gonna go with that. So that's how I created my schedule here. Then I also have my 2 paras, and I have a dark black line because I'm printing this out. My para is gonna get a copy. There's gonna be a copy in the sub plans. The admin are each gonna have a copy. Everyone that works with my kids is gonna have a copy so they know what's going on. So classroom schedule is here for reference. Timing is here. These are students. At the top, you'll put student names right here, and then paras, and then yourself. I always put myself last. I schedule everybody else before me. That's why I ate lunch last. So then you're going to go through, and you're going to first put in specials times, because those timings aren't going to change. They have to go to specials when specials times is. So specials times, put those in first. So you'll see here that I have the different specials times in here. Also, I usually block out lunch. So lunch was right around this time, student lunch. But some of my kids went to inclusion lunch, or they went to lunch with the kids that are in their class, their regular ed classroom. So you'll see that I had some kids who didn't go to lunch with us here. And if they did go to lunch with us during this time, they kind of worked on a book or did something while we were eating, or maybe they ate a snack because he did lunch typically around the time we did snacks. So put in your lunches, your student lunches, and student specials, because those timings are not going to change. It's not something that you can typically maneuver around when it comes to putting a kid. I mean, you don't want to put a 4th grader into a 1st grade special just because the time fits. So put your specials in first. Then it's time to take your resource times, okay? And as you're filling this in, you're going to want, these are duties here. So lunch duty, he had lunch duty, and then his lunch, her lunch, and then her lunch duty. And then you could see my lunch kind of overlapped because there were 2 of us. So fill these in at the same time. I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you and I apologize. But so specials first, okay? Do your classroom schedule. Get all of it down like on a piece of paper so you have it in front of you. All of the IEPs so you have all the service times. And then you're going to put, each kid's going to have their own row. And you're going to put in their specials times first and their lunches when they're going to lunch. Now this schedule you make is going to change 400 million times throughout the school year, and that's okay. This is just to start the school year out. Then you're going to go in, and I put inclusion times in next, because that's very dependent on when the regular ed teacher, the general ed teacher, is teaching that skill or that subject. For my kids, they went to inclusion more for the social aspect of going to inclusion, not necessarily to learn third grade content because they weren't on a third grade level. They went for the social aspect of it. So you can see even for some of them, I have social skills written in here. You're going to put that in next because they generally aren't going to be able to, you can't send a kid in during their English block for science and social studies. Like that's not how it works. So you send your kids, you put your schedules in for inclusion. And I usually color code them so I know, okay, yellow is inclusion. That's when this kid's going to inclusion twice per day. So this child had inclusion, I think this was for reading, and then he went back for science and social studies, or her. And then we had a reading block and then a science and social studies block. So for that whole time, they were in the same class. But then these two only went in for that time and they were for social. Okay, makes sense? So put in your specials, put in your lunch, and then put in your inclusion times. Resource times are a little bit, and I don't want to say this because I've taught resource and I know how difficult it is to make a resource schedule. How do I want to word this? They're more flexible in terms of when they can pull certain kids. It depends on the school though. I don't like saying that. I apologize. But they're more flexible than having an inclusion time for gen ed or having specials times. You can't really change those. Resource times you can kind of maneuver a little bit, a couple minutes here and there. So I always do those last. And these times and box sizes are based off of what's written in the student's IEPs. So I go in and we talk to the resource teacher and we sit down and we say, okay, this is going to be student B because that's what it says. Student B needs math resource time, a resource, that's reading and language arts time, but then they also need more reading and language arts time. So maybe this was the 15 minutes where it was super individualized, or maybe, I don't know, I don't remember why we split it. Maybe she had, I don't know, had to go to lunch or something. But we split it to make it work so they got the full hour. Same here, reading for reading and language arts. So see how I had the same kids in here? They both went to math resource, stayed for reading language arts resource, but one kid came back because he had to go to specials. So we had to make that resource time up. We did it in the afternoon and back-to-backed it with more reading resource and more math resource time. Okay, and for resource teachers, what this looks like when you have kids split like this, I recommend going back into the videos. I did a video last week on different ways to work your schedule and how to kind of lesson plan for resource/inclusion. So I recommend going to view that. So after I have these kind of there, doesn't mean it's set in stone when it comes to resource times. I look at where my paras are throughout the day. Who is available? My schedule is set because I have to take a conference. I'm doing calendar, I'm running language and math centers, I am the classroom teacher in my class. So my paras are the ones that are going to be moving in and out. However, the end of the day is when we either did IEP work if I had a student. So this year I did have a student in my classroom during that time, and we did IEP work during that time. We got a lot of IEP work done during that time. And so now it's time to take your students or take your paras and see who needs help when they go where. So you can see from here to here, and I would put the student's name. Para 1 is going with student C to specials. And they all have their special schedules taped onto their desk so they know where they're going and when. So this para then is staying in life skills. So it's myself and para 2 in life skills. At the same time, para 1 is with student C going to specials. So you can see whenever there's not something filled in, that means they're in the life skills classroom. For whatever reason, she must have went with another student somewhere, and I just put life skills afterwards. So then you can see she went to inclusion. from here to here. I forget where he went, but he went somewhere with somebody, probably into resource, or specials. We went into specials. Okay, so this one went into specials here with these two, and then when she came back, she went and picked the kids up at specials and did the last 15 minutes so he could have lunch duty. And then you can see we're going to lunch together, right? He's at lunch duty, so he's still kind of helping us, but we have lunch duty. And then she's in the classroom while he's doing this, and then he comes back, and then she's here. I'm still in the classroom the whole time. This is my classroom time. I'm the classroom teacher, so I am not leaving the classroom. Then we have students still leaving for resource, but if they're independent going to resource, they're going by themselves. They don't necessarily need a para to go with them. Maybe they do, so you would schedule out your duties and lunch and work around this time. Then you have more students leaving for inclusion, so you're just going to say this student is going with, this para is going with this student, or this vice versa, however it's going to work. And then we have more inclusion here at the end of the day, and typically I stayed with this student, or if that student was absent, I would go into one of the other classes and help them. It looks like a jumbled mess. It does take some brain power, so grab your cherry Cokes, grab all of that stuff that you need around. Grab your caffeine, grab some candy bars and your secret candy stash and your snack stash, because you will need it to get through it. But I promise you, once you get the basics down, once you know when your kids are going to specials, once you know your classroom schedule, the regular ed schedule, once you know who needs what kind of resource time, and you work with the teachers to make it work for your schedule as well, switching out different times. Like, you'll set this schedule and then you'll be like, it doesn't really work. Like, you'll be 2 weeks into it, give it 2 weeks and see if it works. Sometimes you'll be able to tell if it works like within a day or two, and you'll be like, nope, I got to switch that up. Para A can't go with this student. I want para A to stay here. Para B needs to go, and just swap it out that way. Do what works for your kids. Okay, it's not what works best for you. It's what's working best for your kids. So if, like, when I'm in my classroom by myself with all of these kids, we're still doing things that are functional. I know that's a question that a lot of teachers have. Like, what do I do when my paras go to lunch duty? Like, I'm all by myself with 7 kids or 12 kids. That's a lot of kids for one person, especially when you're in a self-contained setting. So set up iPads, write a grant to get some iPads, or swap it out, do some puzzles, do some file folder games, do something that is low impact for you to have to initiate with the kids. Something fun for them, something that's fun. Dramatic play is great for this. Whether you have a dramatic play station and you use centers of different things, you could do dramatic play and work it around. You make it work for you. That's not what this is about, getting all your centers and stuff. My point is, make it work for you. Make it work for your kids. Your kids are the most important. That's what we're there for. So give them the supports that they need, and then everything else will kind of just fall into place. If you feel like a hot mess, it's fine. I feel like a hot mess every single day. Every day is a new day. Don't take anything personally. Just start the new day. If you need to change your schedule, it's fine. Your schedule that you set on the first day of school is not going to be the schedule you have on the last day of school. And that is okay. That's how it works. And it's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. And I promise you, if somebody ever tells you that their schedule they set on the first day of school is the same schedule that they have on the last day of school, they're lying to you, because that's not, you're going to change your schedule, at least one student's schedule, no matter what. I promise you. So don't let it frustrate you. If you need help, please reach out to admin, reach out to the SPED director, reach out to another teacher. One great thing that my previous district did for me when I moved into the district, and I was a first year special ed life skills teacher. Sorry, I had a phone call. I was resource and inclusion before. It was my first year teaching self-contained. So they gave me a mentor teacher who was also a life skills teacher in the district, and I was able to email them and reach out to them if I have any questions. The school admin was also great with helping me with anything that I needed. I could reach out to the district department for SPED and get any help that I needed. So reach out to people. Don't be afraid to ask for help, because scheduling is something that a lot of us struggle with, especially when we have a lot of kids in our caseload. I don't even want to say thankfully, because sometimes 5 kids can be a lot to handle, and that's okay to feel that way too. But it really just depends. Make sure your kids are getting the supports that they need, whether they're in your classroom or they're going into inclusion or they're going into resource, because that's the most important thing at the end of the day. If you have any questions about scheduling, again, the link to the blog post that I wrote about this is above. It walks through that a little bit better. I went really fast through this. And I know that you're probably like, oh my gosh, like now I feel even worse about this whole scheduling thing. But please don't feel that way. If you need any help, please reach out. Please ask in the group. We are here to help you. There are over 4,000 of almost 5,000 of us, and between 5,000 heads of special ed teachers and resource people and service providers, we can help you make the classroom schedule work for you and work for all of the kids in your classroom. So please ask for help. That's what we're here for. That's what everybody else is here for too. So have a good rest of your day. I will see you on Thursday for our live at 3:30. I don't remember what it's about, but tomorrow. It's a week full of Facebook Live, so I'll be back tomorrow. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 3:30, and I'll see you Thursday and Friday. So have a good rest of your day today, and I'll see you soon.